Retail workers of Reddit, what's your Black Friday horror story? Not so much a horror story but something I just couldn't believe. Black Friday at British Walmart, there was these microwaves like 70% off and the store and was so busy you couldn't move. There was empty shelves all along the aisle up to these microwaves, and a guy laid down on the shelf and army crawled along the shelves, grabbed a microwave and army crawled back with it. Edit, spelling. We had a lady call the police on our store because we sold out of a TV. I really wish I was lying. They came too. It was technically the day after Black Friday, but it was still busy as all hell. I worked as a customer service supervisor at AM PST before they closed down Think Best Buy, and all of my checkers called in sick that morning. All of them. So I'm the only ducking one ringing people up for the first like 6 hours of the day. When I finally got a 15-minute break, I went into the back area and blew up at the first manager I could find. I was so pissed and stressed. He just sat there and let me vent to him. After a little while I went back to him and apologized to him, and he was cool with it all. That day sucked. Worked at a store that had a service department. They couldn't bring up anything at the service counter, but they had a computer which made it look like a register. Guy is standing there patiently waiting to be rung up. Finally somebody notices him and asks what he needs. "I'd like to pay," he says. "I'm sorry, this isn't a register," replies the service tech. The guy then proceeds to try and convince the service tech to let him pay because the line for the main registers is 3 hours long. Of course the service tech couldn't because he didn't have a register. He just had a computer for making appointments and such. So after 15 minutes of argument, the guy moves off to find the line. Here's the fun part. While he was arguing, somebody else saw him standing by something that looked like a register and so got in line behind him. Then people saw the shorter line and got in behind them. With nobody to control at the line to nowhere, grew quickly. 15 minutes was all it took for the not line to snake all the way around the department. So when the doofus who started this whole fiasco went to find the right line, he found the end of the line he had started. Then the guy behind him heard that there wasn't a register, so he followed the first guy. Then the next customer followed the second, and so on. They walked around in a circle for an hour before somebody noticed them. We almost had a riot when a manager had to tell 100 people that they weren't in line and had just waited an hour for nothing. That same year we had several scuffles at points where the register line had forked into 2 lines. From then on we marked off a huge register path and had several employees just manage the line. Worked at Walmart years ago. One of my mangers thought she was being sneaky and swapped my Black Friday off shift with an on at 9 AM. My shifts normally didn't start until 1 and ended at 9, so this was utter bullshit. I was in the bakery department and had to work all of Thanksgiving the day before, and they ended up needing more help. I came in at 6 AM that day and worked a 14-hour shift because most of my team had been given the holiday off. My manager's excuse being you're young, they have families they need to be with and kids to celebrate with, so I was pretty angry. I found out that the Black Friday sale was a 65 LCD TV in electronics and PS3s, so needless to say it was going to be a bloodbath. I stayed in my department because there was literally no one else there and caught up on much needed sanitation. When the manager found out before the sale started, she came my way to rain down fire, brimstone, and bullshit on me. Thankfully, I could use their own bullshit policies against them. There needs to be at least one member of the bakery crew on hand to write on cakes, and since I was the only one there, they were shit out to luck. I got out of Black Friday bullshit, got an easy day of work, and the perfect spot to watch the chaos all while screwing over a manager I hated. It was a beautiful day. This happened just today actually. I work at Starbucks. Went to do my routine lobby and bathroom check just to clean up during the craziness. Went into the men's restroom and there was sheet smeared all over the walls, toilet seat and mirror. Really had no other choice but to clean it up with my co-worker. Definitely the most disgusting sheet literally I've ever had to do in my life. Update: wow, this blew up. So I talked to my manager and showed her this exact post, reading a bunch of the replies. She wasn't mad, but in a sense of, or that we were willing to clean up sheet. Even she said she would never ever do that. We went over the policy and reviewed our resources in case this happens. There gets a point where your mind is literally go from the craziness of customers and orders. The poop didn't seem to faze me at all. I'm still baffled at who wipes poop on the walls at a Starbucks. I don't think we pissed off anyone that bad. The good news is that my boss said she's so thankful to have me and all that good stuff. But yes, we do have a number to contact in case someone decides to smear their fesses everywhere. In the meantime, we are supposed to just lock the door and put a sign on the front. Thank you everyone for helping me out. I did not expect the load of replies. I now know not to clean up the poop. I feel stupid for doing it, but I'm glad I now know. I worked at Toys R Us some years ago. No standout bad customers, but it surprised me how many parents brought their young children out at 3 AM and then got mad and would yell at their children for whining/crying because you can't get any toys. Christmas is next month. Ask Santa. Your kid is exhausted and you drag them to a toy store. Of course they're gonna be pissed off. Working there really changed my perspective from being annoyed at shitty kids in public to being annoyed at shitty parents. I saw a woman on Facebook tonight complaining about a local Walmart employee checking her bags and asking out loud if she had item X on her receipt while looking at it and telling Walmart corporate that they ruined Christmas because her daughter was standing right there and had no idea she was getting item X. This took place after midnight. The kid shopped with the parent and stood in line with this cart full of shit, presumably. I just don't ducking get it, man. I work at the largest lingerie retailer in the country. We had a security guard last night for the beginning of Black Friday. A Southern Belle mother decided she didn't want to wait in a 50-person deep line, and she would cut. Our security guard asked her multiple times to step to the back of the line or leave. She proceeded to ream him with every cuss word in the book and ended by threatening him with a gun she had in her bag. This will be my last holiday in retail. He customer who took a sheet in one of my fitting rooms and then wiped HSS with a $125 Polo Ralph Lauren hurt. Nothing more needs to be said. I worked for a golf superstore as a cashier. Black Friday customers come rushing in and the line starts. I proceed to scan the first item and nothing. The registers are completely down and the lines are growing fast. The only thing we could do is take every transaction manually, write down screws, calculate tax, and use the old credit card swipers for 3 hours. I never worked retail during Black Friday again. This year was surprisingly tame. People were all in really good moods, which in turn makes me happy. Last year a woman yelled at me for taking too much time to finish her transaction, that her kids were in the car and she didn't want CPS to take them. Okay then. Former GameStop manager. The worst one I ever worked was 2006. Everyone wanted a damn Wii. When I got to the store at 4 AM to prep for the 5 AM opening, there were people wrapped around the shopping center in a line for the damn thing, even though I had a sign on the door explicitly stating that we could only guarantee them for the first 6 people. When I made the announcement to the folks in line, I thought I was about to get my ass kicked by more than a couple plus grandmas and soccer moms who had been waiting since midnight. After opening, our systems were unbearably slow when processing credit cards, but they still worked. The rest of the day was busy, but not too terrible other than the beachy people who couldn't find a Wii. Fast forward 3 days later, a lady walks into the store with a bank statement and starts laying into me about her card being charged $200 4 times processing, not drafted yet BTW. She insists that she won't walk out until I give her $600 cash from the register. It ended with her and I on speakerphone with my district manager, who politely told her to piss off and call her bank. Cops were very nearly called during the ensuing screaming. This is with a store packed with customers. Fun stuff. As it turned out, our credit card processor had been overwhelmed that day, and this turned out to be a wide issue. It was the explanation for the system slowdown on Black Friday. The charges dropped off after a couple days. Edit. As others have mentioned, she had every reason to be pissed. I would be too. This woman made it very personal, to the point where she was taking liberties with my sexuality and parentage. Be pissed, but you can be angry without being a raging cunt. Someone else's experience reminded me of one I had a few years back. I worked at a toy store in the mall. Really fancy mall, and we only sold one brand of toys. Anyways, we were all about interacting with the parents, and especially making the kids feel special. It was probably the best place in retail to work, not gonna lie. If I could have had full time with benefits, I'd have stayed. Anyhow, early December a woman comes into the store with her 2 children, probably aged 5 and 7, no older than that. I overhear her say, "I'll be back, stay here," and she just leaves them. Not a word to us, she just vanishes. Within minutes it got busy, as in 50 customers plus kids. There are only 3 employees in the store, 2 on register, then there's me, the shift manager. Supposed to be helping people shop. There is no way I'm taking my eyes off of these kids, but there are too many people here. 5 minutes go by, then 5th I'm checking in with these little dudes to see how they're holding up. They're just fine, but I'm the type who takes 100% responsibility for children in my store. I call mall security because I'm freaking out about the need to watch them. At this point, I have to make a return and do a bunch of customer maintenance. No way to keep track of the kids. Turns out mall security called the cops. The officers show up about 25 minutes after this lady left her kids. The lady gets down and makes small talk with the boys while the man waits outside. Things slow to a crawl in the store, so my fellow employees entertain the boys while I speak with the officers. Apparently their mother had gone to the other mall across the effing 4-lane street at 7:30 PM. During crazy busy shopping time. She eventually did come back for them, but it had been close to an hour. And in Ohio, that is way past what counts as child abandonment. I don't know what happened to her/them, but all I remembered is a shock of who the hell thinks that's a good idea, and OMG is she going to jail, while I watched the officers escort her and her children away. Edit. I didn't want to name the store cause I've still got an ongoing addiction/love affair with the brand. But I'll spare everyone from having to play more 20 questions any longer. It was the Lego store. When I was 15 I got my first actual job. It was at a clothing store and my first day was Black Friday. I thought it wouldn't be a big deal because I was hired for men's formal wear. When I show up at 4 AM, the manager tells me I'm working women's shoes today only. Absolute madness. The worst part is shoe salesmen get commission, but since I didn't have employee numbers I got only minimum wage, losing out of hundreds of dollars extra pay. When I worked at Best Buy I watched 2 elderly ladies get in a fist fight over a Nintendo DS. That and the cleaning the aftermath of Black Friday. Looked like a grocery store before a hurricane. I used to work at Walmart during the late 90s. I worked overnights unloading trucks, and back then the store I worked at didn't have mechanized lifts to get stuff up into the bins in the back, so stock reserved for the Blitz sale was all thrown up there by hand. Anyways, 3 hours to go we had to get 3 pallets worth of 19-inch symphonic court TVS down. My co-worker, Alan, didn't want to throw them down one at a time, so he pushed a pallet of Pampers down first, followed by all 3 pallets of TVS. Over the next few days several of those TVS came back as returns. I try to think that they were crap, but also wonder how many were damaged during the fall. About 15 years ago, I was working at a bookstore in a mall. Somehow, around 5 PM maybe, I found myself the only employee in the entire store, not a single co-worker to be found, and we were slammed with customers. We usually had music playing in the store, controlled by an ordinary 5-CD stereo in the back office, and of course this is the day the inoffensive holiday music gets brought into circulation. Around the time I found myself alone, I noticed the stereo had become stuck on repeat, just playing the same song over and over. It was at least an hour before I was able to get away from the counter, and so that was the day I was forced to listen to some kind of generic very jazzy jingleable some 30 times back to back. Guy tried to steal a Bluetooth speaker this Black Friday at Best Buy. After we caught him and called the cops he was searched. The cops ended up discovering 3 items he was hiding. 1. Loaded gun. He did not have a concealed carry permit, nor was it a registered weapon. 2. Bag of black tar heroin. 3. JBL Flip 3 speaker. This man will now be serving hard time because he wanted an $80 speaker. Nice. Just today I sold a couch to a guy who drove a Prius with no roof rack. We do not deliver, and he won't leave until we found a way to get this thing secured to his car somehow. Not only had he clearly not planned ahead or thought it through, he was a total jerk about it and insisted on making it our problem. We ended up using half a spool of twine to tie this thing down, and he had to climb in through the window because the twine went through his doors. I really wish I had taken a picture. At one point he complained to our GM, who had no idea what we were supposed to have done to appease this moron. Finally, we insisted that he sign a waiver before leaving, because we were not about to be held responsible for his own stupidity. Of course, this was also during the busiest part of the day. I don't mind helping load or tie down for customers, but this guy took the cake.